Well, hello everybody. Happy Monday, marvelous Monday, miraculous Monday, magical Monday, mystical Monday. Just a really cool Monday. Happy, happy, happy wherever you are in the world. Good morning, good afternoon. We are going into evening, yeah, already. It's 4 p.m. So really wonderful to have Bryce back with us. Hello, Bryce.
Hello.
Hello, Mornay. How is
Hi.
everybody?
Good. It's
Good.
day. I know it's so crazy that you guys are ending your day. We're just starting our day over here in the United States. It's only 9:11 in the morning here on the East Coast and even earlier for our Californians. But we're on day
Yeah.
3 of the 60-day challenge, and I just have to give a shout out again to all of our challengers, our friends who are in Australia, in South Africa, who are hours and hours ahead of me, and they are in that support group keeping the ball rolling, helping everybody get going every day. So I have to really shout them out because it's amazing to see. So,
Yeah, absolutely. That's what's so nice about having something like that. When you have a group of people together, it's like you can't cheat. You become accountable not just to yourself, but to each other as well, which is a really great thing. You feel supported, you do support. And I've got about 3 or 4 doves edging their way into my kitchen, so I might have to.
oh, I love it.
They're so cheeky, I want to tell you. And the ones that cover you often know because they know now they get to the window, they just swoop out. But others I've got to take them out. Anyway, so yeah, it really is it's a cool opportunity to be doing stuff like this. And it's really great that there's so many people involved. Also the supporters, like all the other people. We're doing the fasting and the sun salutations as well, Surya Namaskar. So
Yeah.
looking forward to that. Guys, and I have to tell you, I was supposed to on Saturday end cycle 2 of my second 7-day cycle of 108. I decided to continue. And today I finished day 9 of 108. It is incredible. I want to tell you, from about, and it's amazing because when we do it, you see how I've written it, because when we do the first 36, the first cycle of 36, when you look at the numbers of 36, you're actually looking at setting intentions,
Yeah.
deciding, getting yourself into alignment. The next is then creating and bringing that into balance, and that's often the challenging stuff. And that was when I had that insight about my sister, when she had the collapse, all of that. That was at the end of my 72 cycle. And it's been incredible because also with the 108, I just woke up yesterday morning with answers to everything I needed. It was just there. It was just there. It was amazing, and that's why I say so. And still a few more things that I want. And I just thought, you know what, why don't I just feel like carrying on? So I'm doing it. It's amazing. And I really look forward to sometime in the next couple of weeks, month or so, when we do the Surya Namaskar challenge, 3-week cycles of 36, 72, oopsie, and 108, that you guys will join in on that, because it breaks through. It's like the rite of passage in the
Yeah.
yoga world. It really is. It's just, and as people say, why 108? We know that's a sacred number. And just the repetition and the intention, and the repetition and the breathing and the intention, because yoga is a prayer through your body to the divine as well.
Yeah.
So as you breathing and as you setting your intentions and just enjoying what life has to offer, suddenly it just boom, there it is. So
Yeah.
enough of it. We are now moving on to today's show, which is part 8, right? 8?
I
Yeah?
was
8.
laughing
8.
before with this third tablet is going to be part 556 because it's just every Every verse is so potent that we have to like really look at it,
Yeah.
because this is, again, I know I say this every show, but we're starting today off on verse 26 of the third tablet, not verse 1, because this is I am going to be using Rebecca Marina Messenger's book on the third tablet. Usually we use Doriel's book, but I really like what Rebecca Marina Messenger has in this book, because she's also got the channelings from the divine feminine of Thoth. And, we said before, it's Monday, how appropriate, because Thoth was of the moon, the energy of the moon cycle, and Monday is the day of the moon, and so that's really, really, that's where we get the name Monday from, and so that's it's pretty appropriate. And as comical as it is, yes, the first two tablets, if you guys go back and re-listen to those episodes, we were able to cover them all in one episode, because it was really the first two tablets were the who, what, where, when, and why, and how, like who is Thoth, what happened. And now the third tablet is getting into the actual real human lessons, that and some of it's very common sense, but I think common sense ain't so common anymore. We have to be reminded of really of what intentions we carry, and about really holding our own, and really resting into ourselves. And I think, there's a lot of confusion about whether Thoth was good or bad, and I just say read the Emerald Tablets. In my opinion, he had very good intentions and was here to really help humanity through his teachings, because it's all about really doing service to others, and healing yourself. And so if you're following along, we are on verse 26 of tablet 3. And I was telling Shanti and Mornay, we're going to get into the chakra system as well in this tablet, which is interesting because he has different names that I'd never heard before for the chakras. And so it's interesting. I always like seeing, we see that a lot if you've been following along with all of Tom Kenyon's work, the Egyptian alchemy, which we know that the land of Kem, from the first tablet, Egypt was originally called the land of Kem, which is where we get the word chemistry, alchemy from. And so a lot of the Egyptian mystery schools and healing practices very much mirror what we see in yoga. They're called different things, but they're the same, right? So what Shanti and I and Mornay might call prana, or life force, you see from the Egyptian schools, they call ka, the ka body. So it's interesting to see the different names of vibratory responses from different cultures. The chi, or chi, yes.
In Chinese, the Chinese, it will be called chi, which is the life force energy. Yeah.
Yes. And so it's all saying the same thing, but I always find it super fascinating, because we know through the study of Ayurvedic medicine that the three elements of life are breath, food, and sound. And sound, of course, is vibration. So to hear the different, we know there's vibration, like chakra 1 is Muladhara in the Sanskrit word, but it's something else in the Egyptian. So to hear that, but we're going to be getting into that. We've got a couple verses before we get into that, but I just want to prepare you guys, because I find this stuff super, super interesting. Very fascinating. So, verse 26 of tablet 3, she's got it titled as Don't Go Breaking the Law. All right. So, the original text said, Consider the law, for all is law. Seek not that which is not of the law, for such exist only in the illusion of the senses. So, the modern commentary is there is a universal law that applies to every situation and every being. It is only an illusion to think that the universal laws do not apply to you. When you try to go against natural law, it is only imaginary quest with no substance. We talked about a lot of these laws, right? The laws of karma, the laws of vibration, the laws of attraction. So if you're a complete, it's an illusion to think that what you put out is not going to come back to you. And in every essence of the word. And we know from spiritual studies that there really is no such thing as good or bad karma. It's just cause and effect, action, reaction. We are the ones that label it as such. And so he's saying, don't think that you're somehow immune to these laws. You are a part of the universe. And I know when I studied the skinwalkers, and now my mind's completely gone blank on the tribe, the tribe that lived in the southwestern, Native American tribe that lived in this. Yeah, if you guys remember, I can't. My mind's completely gone blank now on the name of this tribe. But anyway, they taught there. If people watching want to put in the because my mind's completely gone blank now. They would talk about with medicine men and women that if you were a light worker, if you were practicing a magic or healing work for the light, then you were working with nature. You were helping people work with the flow of nature. But if you were if you were turned like a shapeshifter skinwalker who was working in the dark, you were working against nature. And I thought that was very interesting because here's an old Egyptian tablet that's kind of mimicking what they were teaching as well. Like you are never going to be above the laws of karma. Never. So, and the laws of the universe with your vibration. And so it's an illusion to think you are separate. All right. So Shishat says, ponder the laws of the universe when making decisions about your life. There is no need to search for a law book, for the laws that govern humanity are already written in the walls of your heart. You know this already. I say there's a great saying that if you need religion to know right from wrong, then you don't need religion, you need morals. Because you see, even children know right from wrong. Small children who don't know how to read or write intuitively know when they've hurt someone or know when somebody is in pain. My oldest niece, who is 8 now, from the time she was in diapers, she was an animal whisperer. She would go to animals, like dogs that were hyper, and she had the ability just to put her hands on them and calm them down. And just, my dog was very hyper when we rescued him. He's a street dog, and she'd be like, Rabito, cute, in her little diaper, and he would calm right down for her. So children know this. They're written in the walls of your heart. Children know we're born. We don't need someone to really teach us these things. It's interesting. I was having a conversation with one of my students yesterday, my in-person students. He's from India. And we were talking a lot about the difference in culture from studying with an Indian teacher versus a Western teacher. And in the Western world, in class situations, we ask a lot of questions because we're based in logic in the Western world. But in India, it's not traditional for you to question the guru that much. And a lot of Westerners would be like, or the teacher that much, a lot of Westerners would be like, oh, that's so bad. But he was like, no. What Westerners don't understand is that these teachers, these master teachers, don't want you asking questions because they want you to figure it out with your own intuition. They want you to look within yourself to, instead of getting the logical response, feel it within yourself about what the answer is. And I thought that was so interesting. And so it's already, and Shanti, you were saying this morning with the sun salutations, like, it's like something inside is being unlocked. That's this knowledge, this knowing that was already there to begin with. Yeah. So that's interesting. She goes on to say, as we have said time and time again, follow the wisdom that you already know to be true. The wisdom that you already know to be true. It is easy when you go within and heed the prompting of your own soul. Okay, so don't doubt yourself. Trust your gut. Logic will only get you so far, but that gut knowledge, that gut intuition is what will get you further. Because that's written within the walls of you. So that brings us to tablet 3, verse 27. Wisdom comes to all who seek. Wisdom cometh to all her children, even as they cometh unto wisdom. Thoth's commentary in modern English. As you seek wisdom, wisdom is seeking you. Wisdom is eager to find a home within you. There's a Bible verse that mirrors this. Ask and you shall receive. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you. What you are looking for is also looking for you. We have a saying in yoga too, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Right? So you can lie with your mind, you can lie with your voice, but your vibrationary body or the soul within you is always putting out the truth and is always bringing in what you need to find that truth. Yeah? Shishat goes on to say, I refer again to the laws of the universe, the law of attraction, like what I was just saying. That which is unto itself is drawn to itself. Or even more plainly, like attracts like. Wisdom is seeking the seeker, even as the seeker is seeking the wisdom. I think a lot of our friends watching right now probably would agree with that. Hence why they join us on these journeys of studying, because they're seeking the wisdom as well. They're on the journey of the seeker. And that's kind of what, I know a lot of people like to call us like the truther community, but I don't really like that name. I think we're seekers. We're all just seekers.
I like that. Always.
There's never what does the Cassiopean say? We know power is knowledge is power, knowledge protects, and knowledge is infinite. It's never ending. We're always on the path of, and the more you learn, the less you know anyway. And so the more you learn, the more you have to unlearn, right? Like I mean, I know people watching have been on, we call it deprogramming in modern terms, but like the more you learn about other perspectives of life that feel true versus maybe what you've been taught, you still have that bumping up of ideas that you have to start to untangle. What's the Shakespearean line? Oh, the tangled webs we weave, and first we practice to deceive. Well, we've all been deceived to an extent by those outside of us and by ourselves. And so we're going through that untangling of unlearning. And so far, we're always on the path of being the seeker of knowledge. And so, and that's always going to keep propelling you to the next level. It's a never ending. I'm sure Mornay, Shanti, and myself have been on this journey for many, many years now, even before YouTube. And it's never over. I'm still learning new stuff. I'm still learning stuff every day. There's more stuff to be discovered and learned, and different and more depth and different perspectives. Right. So it's never over.
One thing life is not boring.
No.
If life is boring for you, then you're doing it wrong.
I know. Well, it's like there's an Albert Einstein quote I really like. And I'm going to paraphrase it. He says, you can see life in two ways: that nothing is a miracle, or that everything is a miracle. And I love that, because it is your perspective. It is your, I'm very intrigued by atheists. The atheists really intrigue me. And I know a lot of people who are atheists come from a lot of abuse from religious backgrounds. And I totally understand that when they're going through the path of healing, that they have to completely remove themselves in order to heal themselves. But I'm always intrigued by atheists, because it almost seems to me like it's harder to be an atheist than to have any type of faith, because how do you explain things that are just miracles? How do you explain how amazing everything works together, how amazing nature is, how amazing the human body is, if there's nothing that is greater than us, if there's no understanding, even with our higher selves, so that's always, atheists are fascinating to me in that way, because to me, it takes a lot more faith to not believe in anything than it is to believe in something, because it's just the world around us would tell us that there is a bigger picture at play that we're not seeing. It's like Joe Rogan says for us.
Aren't atheists always often about science? So as long as it can be proved by science, so rather than anything spiritual, it's all about science.
But who created the science? That's what I want to ask them. But who pushed the domino over first to have this beautiful? Yeah. How come everything in nature is patterned so perfectly? How come if you look at your animals, just look at your dog, one of your dogs, for like, if I do this all the time. Like my dog is like I know a lot of people watching right now, our dogs are like our children, our literal children. So I know every freckle, every spot on my dog's body. But if you even look at, we as humans, we often just think about ourselves. But if you look at your dog or your cat or your bird, and you see the intricate design of the way their fur is placed on their body, look into their eyes. If you look into your dog's eyes, you'll see a soul there. There's a soul that's there. If you look at the way it's all perfectly designed, and we're a part of that. And so, yeah, with the science, I want to be like, but who started that? You can't tell me that it just by accident, it just worked out so perfectly.
For me, growing up in school, science, physics, mathematics, and art was basically, they were together. They were one and the same. I could never understand why religion and science were fighting with each other. And it didn't bother me to find out, because I always knew that. But when I was doing my school, it was like I was trying to figure out God. And if you take art into it, so for me, it was always one thing. So, science and maths and everything explains God's creation. So if you can understand God's creation, then you can have a glimpse of what God is. And so I think people just need more art, creativity in their lives.
Well, I think the ego too. Joe Rogan often says that for us as human beings, the concept of God, for us to truly understand, is like explaining an iPhone to an ant. And I actually like that, because it allows us a sense to sit back and go, yes. Our soul is living in multiple multiple vibrational levels outside of our body, but we're so
Dimension.
constricted and we limit ourselves to the world of third density that sometimes it's hard for us to conceive concepts that are not in it. But kids get it. Like, kids, listen, I mean, if a kid starts telling you there's someone in the house that you can't see, believe them. Kids and dogs see spirits. I mean, if your dog starts barking in a corner, that whenever my dog starts barking at the corner, I'm freaked out. You know, like, they see things because they don't
But you
have.
know what's interesting? What's interesting about that, Bryce, just to mention this as well, when you look at old people as well, and when they come to the completion of their life, they also see spirits again.
Yeah.
So it's like, isn't that amazing? When they've come to that old, it's like they're going to choose whatever path they need to. But at the end of the day, they just, you know, go back to where they came from.
I think we're losing Shanti. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I know
so often, and especially people who are
the controllers.
Okay, yeah, internet issues again. Exactly. Every time I start waffling, I get switched off.
They're like, tell them to shut up. Back in the day, if you study like the all the old mystery schools and all that kind of stuff, like thousands and thousands of years ago, the scientists were also the priest. It was one and the same.
Yeah.
You look. I've been looking at a lot of Tom Kenyon's work on my channel through the Magdalene Manuscript, the Hathor material. He's a scientist. He works in like therapeutic stuff through a very clinical background, but he's also extremely spiritual. He's also a channeler. And so that's why I find his work so fascinating, because he marries the two together, you know, because he's also a scientist who 100% is on board with the supernatural and the mystical and that there's more to life than we can perceive in our third density mind, you know, this heavy density we chose to come into. And so yeah, it's I agree with, I mean, it's the original science. And I know I come from a family of doctors, and a lot of the doctors in my family are very awake like we are. I will say they've been very anti the Zappardi Doodah themselves as medical doctors. And even my dad once, he's a veterinarian, and they'll tell you, like in surgeries, that there is a God factor, that it is always just practicing medicine. It's not set in stone, and there's always a God factor. Most doctors have a lot of miracles that they can tell you about that they've witnessed on operating tables.
Yeah.
Even with animals, that the science dictated something else should have happened when the exact opposite happened. So that's
Yeah.
I think there are a lot more scientists who probably do have a faith than are probably allowed to speak nowadays. Because I know that's part of what the controllers want to do, is they want to separate the two, right? They want their science, which is my understanding of science, which I've talked to Catherine Edwards a lot about, because Catherine Edwards is a scientist. You know, she's a biologist. Is that science is something that's always in question. So if you're a scientist and you have a theory, your job is then to go and try to disprove your own theory, right? But now it's gotten to days where you can't question it, which that is not science. Yeah. You know? So you know, all right. So that brings us to hidden mysteries. So this is when it really starts getting juicy, guys. Tablet 3, verse 28. All through the ages, the light has been hidden. Awaken, O man, and be wise. Deep in the mysteries of life have I traveled, seeking and searching for that which is hidden. List ye, O man, and be wise. Thoth's commentary in modern English. Throughout all time, light has been something to search for. Listen to my words of wisdom. That which is most valuable must be sought after. I have traveled through many dimensions, seeking out the mysteries, far too enormous to put in this small text. Yet as you seek wisdom and follow your guidance, you too shall be wise and see greater mysteries. Shishat contributes her wisdom. You have the capacity to take in the light through the magnificence of your heart and its magnetic field. So we're talking not necessarily about the physical heart, because we're about to get in the chakra system. The energetic cycle of energy that has this kinetic magnetic field, and that's how we take. If we were just bodies walking around strictly biology with no spirit, no soul, we would not have the kinetic magnetic field that allows us to understand these things, right? So that's what she's saying. This is one of the greatest hidden mysteries of all. For after traveling throughout the cosmos, my beloved Thoth stated that he found no greater mystery that is found in the heart of man. So let me reiterate that. He's saying that out of everything in the cosmos, all the constellations, there is no greater mystery than that which is inside of you.
I love that. That is so beautiful. There's no greater mystery than in the heart of man. And that is so true, because when we look at our hearts, I mean, they go deep. I mean, we've got the capacity to do the most horrific things when we shut down or disconnect or go into the physical, material rather. But I mean, when you look at the spiritual side of humanity, gosh, like can you hear all the doves?
That's a God wink, all those doves, because doves represent God, right? Like that's a God wink that they're flying in.
There was about 12 of them in here now. Now you know what my cats are so fascinated.
We see you, spirit. We see you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna let them out now. But anyway, what I was saying was that was like really so true, just like that whole in the heart of man, because we have the capacity to love so deep and so strong. And when everything else is, when the chips are down, we're there for each other no matter what. We're very forgiving, yet we're so vengeful, I mean, it's quite incredible, really. And it's true. It's a beautiful topic to actually philosophize on.
I mean, think about it this way, too. I was taking a bar class the other day, and the teacher I work with, Marnie Alton, she always has these great things she says. And she was talking about, it was in a very intense part of the workout. And she was talking about the human spirit. And she goes, how much force does it take to stop a moving train? How much force does that take? That's in you. The force that it takes to stop a moving train, that is within you. And you think about that with like mothers. You hear stories all the time of mothers pushing Mack trucks off of their children, because that love is so strong that it defies the physical, the perceived, and I'm going to say the perceived physical limitations, because in the Hathor material, the Hathors very much say like your limitations are simply perceived by you because you're in a dense dimension. But once you start to understand that even your physical limitations are your own perceptions and nothing more, once that bondage breaks, we see that with self-healing, right, Shanti? Like once you realize you have the capacity to heal, you heal,
And whether you're healing a sore finger or a tumor in your brain, healing is healing. Yeah. So we get to realize, because we tend to think, okay, we got to start with a little thing. And really, as human beings, I understand that's what we need to do at this point. But the more we do it, the more we kind of move into that momentum of just knowing healing is our birthright. Knowing really healing, all it is to bring ourselves into balance. Really, that's all healing is to bring ourselves into balance. And when we do, we immediately align with our divine desire for ourselves. And when we're in that place, it's not an egoistic thing, but we understand my will for me is God's will for me.
Yeah.
So it's not this, should I this? I mean, of course, there are going to be little moments where you've got to make decisions and stuff. But I'm talking about on a much bigger picture. We can see, when we're following our divine path, it's, I better go and take this poor little guy out. There's
little
now
God
one guy.
Again.
Yeah. And he's like toddling around on the floor. Yeah. So he's very upset because he's the big boss. So. So yeah, so I think that's really what it is. You get to the place where you realize when you pray, when you meditate, when you're in alignment with your creator, there is no tussle. There is no fighting. It just is what it is, and you are following your divine path, and that. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean there aren't twists and turns, Doesn't mean the boogeyman doesn't jump out from behind the bush every now and again, you know. But it's really understanding that you are walking the right path.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting you say that, and I'm preparing to do a show on a concept called organic portals. And the way you say that, yeah, and the Cassiopeians say that the more you become aware, the more your consciousness starts to become aware of itself. Actually, the more you're going to attract or get what they call organic portals, which are negative entities, because you are becoming more aware. And so, and I've called it before, and I heard it called the initiate's path before, that once you're on this journey of self-awareness, the more your vibration starts to rise, the more the polarization is going to come in and try to topple you down. I'm working on a show next. It was very fascinating, the things that they were saying, these Cassiopeians were saying about this, but yes.
But isn't it? But I mean, whether we look at as something or someone trying to grab us. They're trying to get out the glass door, guys. I'm not killing them. Okay, they're fine. They just make more of a noise than anything. Okay, so what was I saying? Sorry.
So when the more you become aware, I think I know where you were going. Yeah, like when you have these negative things hit you, the more awareness it's your choice whether you succumb to them or use them as propelling friction to go even deeper into your own work.
But okay, sorry. What I wanted to say again, it's a natural process of events.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at polarization, right? The planet is polarized. Everything is equally balanced. So if you're going further into your light, of course, you're going to access something on the other side. So rather than see it as something or someone trying to do you harm and attaching itself to you, understand that's your polarization. That's you accessing that opposite. And what is that, whatever it is, trying to tell you about yourself? Why are you scared of it? Why are you battling with it? What is it making you feel like? And this is how we transmute, because this is how we alchemize things, not by externalizing it from ourselves or excluding ourselves from that, but we understand that everything that we access.
Jeez.
I'll take it up now. Is a representation of something that we're bringing up. Okay, sorry, let me just take these guys out. Then I'm breaking my vase. So now, I'm going to kiss them twice now, because I know when I catch them, I tell them they get kissed.
Well, with that being said, while Shanti's taking care of the doves, they have a reference back to Tablet 1, verse 15 from the original tablets, which I think is great, because they do, this is kind of a concept that's going to come up. Free was I of the halls of Amente, bound not by death to the circle of life. Far to the stars I journeyed until space and time became as naught. Then have drunk deep the cup of wisdom, I looked into the hearts of men, and there I found great mysteries and was glad. For only in the search for the truth could my soul be stilled and the flame within be quenched. So again, he's going back to, we know from the first tablet, the very first tablet, the very first verse, Thoth is like, I'm writing this for you guys. And when he says you guys, Billy Carson makes this very clear. I think we've talked about it a lot. He's talking about our generation. So that's really cool. And that's why I think the Emerald Tablets are such a huge discussion now, more now than any generations before us, is because this is the time of this is astrologically the time that this is important. And it's interesting too, when you think about that, well, how would he have known? Well, there's also a concept with time, and that's just something that I struggle with in my understanding. And I can't remember, we're either in time space or space time, but outside of space time, it flips itself. But there's this concept that actually all of our past lives, all of our future lives, and the lives we're in now are all playing out at the exact same time. That's a big concept in spirit. And that's really hard, I think, because in our third density brain, we see things moving in patterns. And so we see time as something linear when time is actually not linear. It's literally happening in the now.
Exactly, but isn't that interesting that when we I'm just with what you're saying there, I'm seeing how the Lucys are taking that literally, because as a woman, when you give birth to your daughter, right? She holds within her all the eggs already that
Mhm.
carry your grandchildren,
Yep.
right? So these eggs, by the way, are harvested. These tiny baby eggs, when there's these ritual sacrifices and things that go on of our babies and the kids, rest assured, these little kids, their eggs get harvested as well. Babies as tiny as what they are. That's a well-known thing, and they use that in future. Isn't that interesting? How they
Yes.
keep that bloodline or that lineage going, even though the child might be dead, they will take those eggs and they will use those eggs for future splicing and dicing. How
It's
insane is
also
that?
so Shanti, you're a grandmother. Oh no, but
Yeah.
you had a son. I was about to say, so if you had a daughter, so this is interesting. I found this very, very, very fascinating. So my mom, my sister, when my mom was carrying my sister, when she was pregnant, my sister was developing her eggs. And within those eggs were my nephew and nieces. So the
So
mother, the grandmother,
your mother actually carried her grandchildren.
yes. Isn't that interesting through the feet? So like in
Yeah.
my sister with her daughters, with Jacqueline and May, she carried when those daughters were developing their eggs, my sister was carrying her grandchildren too.
Isn't that
Isn't
amazing?
that it's
Guys,
so
isn't that
fascinating.
incredible?
It's so
Yeah,
fascinating, and
sure.
I was super close to my mom's mom, and she died when I was 9, but I was really close to her, and as I figured that out, of course, when she died, I didn't really understand how babies were made or anything like that, but as I got older, I was like, "Wow, I was actually in my grandmother's belly too." When my mother was being, developed in utero, I was also being developed in my grandmother Maxine's belly as well. And it's just super fascinating how that, so again, it goes back to that conversation of what is science and what is mystical faith. They're one and the same. You can't
Yeah.
oh, why do we call, I don't, that's
Where's
interesting.
Chantal?
I think yeah, I don't know where did she put, did they kick her off the control. I think Chantel is public enemy number one when it comes to the
Did you?
controllers.
What did you just
Seriously,
do?
guys, you'd swear my channel had like 10 million followers. The way these guys keep harassing
We
me.
are
They
dangerous,
shadow
Shanti.
ban me. They
Go
shadow ban me around every corner. They restrict me. They put me in jail. I swear. Okay, well,
Who
I
would have
just carry
thunk by just saying, "Hey, take care of yourself, listen to your own gut"? They would have been so pissed off by that. But I think so, Thea. I that's interesting. I know in the past, we have not always followed the father's bloodline. There are tribes long time ago that followed through the mother's bloodline when the matriarch was more in charge. But I know, like even in the Jewish culture, a child is only considered to be Jewish by birth if the mother is Jewish. So, like, I have a friend who's married to a Jewish man, but she herself is
Oh,
Anglican, and she's agreed to raise the children Jewish. But in the culture, the kids, even though the father is Jewish, the kids are not really considered Jewish because the mother isn't. So even in some
But also,
cultures,
that's
sorry, and
interesting.
I want to just say with certain astrology, when you're understanding medieval astrology, right? And that's something my sister does. You look at the first child who will follow the father's bloodline, the second child, the mother's. I'm not actually sure which one it is. So when you're looking, I mean, this is absolutely fascinating. So when you're actually looking at inheritances, bloodlines, and stuff, you look at the first child, which is the father, the second child, the mother. So there is no really following. It's really just in this patriarchal age that we are being told we must take,
Yeah.
the father's in charge. And yes, obviously physically stronger and stuff, but that we've got to take the bloodline. I mean, why don't the kids take both the parents' surname or make up your own surname? You know what I'm saying, as a
yeah,
family.
I
But
always
it's really, that's why I say when you're looking at the bloodlines, especially in things like astrology, you're seeing where the kids belong. And it's so true because I belong to my mother's bloodline. and it's to do with even though if you look at me physically, I will resemble my father and his side of the family a lot more. I mean, my father's 6'6" tall, was, I'm 5'9" tall, strong, athletic. So, that's, even though I look like that, I will still follow. And my mother, and it's how interesting, because when you look at is it my great grandmother or my grandmother? She's French, and she's the one, because you look at it like that, the grandparents, she's French, and I'm the one with the French name in the family. Where did I come in a French name? Do you know what I'm saying?
That's
So
interesting. I'm the oldest. I was the firstborn. I'm a good combination of both my parents, but I actually follow. I have my dad's mom's personality more, but I follow a lot of my mother's. And my name, and that's, so I'll give you something that we do here in the South. My sister, who is the secondborn, she's identical to what my dad. She looks exactly like my dad's mom. Like, she looks just like my dad's mom.
It's I know that it's not, it's like the firstborn son or the firstborn daughter. So it's not so much of the firstborn. So it's like whether it'll be the firstborn daughter, I can't remember, guys, but I'll tell you, it's fascinating. And then you start looking at it like that, and you'll see it's got nothing to do with the hierarchy in the family. It's really all about your spiritual choices. To come through these various bloodlines, to be born and incarnated with your parents. You choose that. And you obviously, and that's why it says in the Bible, the sins of the father bestowed upon the child. Really it is. And you're completing ancestral karma, and you the one, sorry, not completing, you're continuing until you decide you can change that. Especially when it comes to hereditary illnesses. Now, as a healer, obviously there's lots of good things as well. We don't talk about the good things. There's awesome things as well, such as your beautiful eyes and your shiny teeth and stuff like that. Absolutely. But we're talking about, the spiritual stuff, the stuff that needs to be brought up, chugged up, and actually worked with and processed. So that's very, very interesting when we start looking at it like that.
And as far as like naming, carrying the father's last name, I always kind of see it now. If I were to have a child, I would absolutely give my child their father's last name. That's just something I would do. But I would hope that the father of my child would be a very good, my dad, he had his issues, but I see, the way I see it too is like women, both the feminine and masculine have two different like roles to play, right? And children, like when a child is sick in the middle of the night, 9 times out of 10 they're going to be screaming for their mom, right? There, because the mother has that umbilical cord with the child. There is an energetic connection that a mother has with her, and I'm not saying fathers don't either. And it's interesting, we've been watching at night, there's this show on Netflix called Servant. It's a psychological thriller, but it's about a mother who loses her child and she has a baby doll. It gets into the psychology if she thinks the baby doll is her child. And we were talking about that last night. And there's a saying that says a woman becomes a mother the minute she finds out she's pregnant. A man becomes a father the minute he sees his child for the first time. The hormones really start to kick in with the father. Now, that being said, most men, once they found out their wives or girlfriends were pregnant, would probably do everything they could to make sure their wives or girlfriends were okay. That love would be there, but the realization, and you see it on a man's face when they videotape men getting their baby for the first time, just the look on a man's face of actually, where the woman has felt this baby grow for 9 months in her stomach, the man is now finally holding his child. And a lot of people say that naturally, too, when babies first come out of the womb, they'll look exactly like the dad as a way, and then the child will change over time as a way for the dad to recognize that's his child. There's no doubt it's the mother's child, right? Because it came from her body. Like there's no question who the mother is, but when we look at like the father, there can be question about who the father is. And so sometimes I think with that being said, with the sentiment now, one of my favorite things to watch on YouTube when I'm really having a bad day is videos called Girl Dads. There's all these videos on YouTube of these big, strong, athletic men like alpha men who really wanted sons and all they got were daughters. And to see these big alpha men, these bros, like melting for these tiny little girls is hysterical. There's one picture of this big black dude, like football player, American football player, and his daughter had dressed him up in like ballet, and he was just sitting there letting her put makeup on, and the woman zoomed in on his foot. You know those little plastic high heel shoes little girls can wear? The daughter had shoved that on, and his little pinky toe was like hanging out through the little, and she's like, all my husband wanted was sons, and he got like 4 daughters, and he is the happiest man. So to see, I'm not saying that there is something with men, they do love their children, obviously, but I think for a man to have the child carry in a very sentimental way, have the child carry his last name is meaningful, because the mother is so a part of that child's growth, existence. Again, like when I was a kid and I was sick, I was screaming for my mom. I was not screaming for my dad. I remember one time I got sick at school and my mom was out of town, and so my dad had to come get me from school, and I had to go to his vet clinic because he couldn't take me home. And I had to lay on the cold linoleum floor in his office while he was working by myself. And it's just so different. It's just so different from a mom, right? I'm not saying that there are men who are very sensitive and loving, but it's just a different dynamic relationship. And they say that you do learn how to have a love from your opposite sex parent. And so for the men out there that are great girl dads, they're teaching their daughters what it's like to have a man in their life that truly respects them. And so I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying for me as a woman, and I will say in the South, it's a big thing to do, talking about the bloodline. So like my first name is my mother's maiden name. And Bryce with an I is actually Brice. It's French. So her father's line was French, but we say Bryce because we're English speakers. And that's a big thing to do. So my name is Bryce Elizabeth Watson. Bryce was my mother's maiden name. And if I was going to be born a boy, I would have carried my father's name. I would have been the third, Edgar Lee Watson the third. But as a daughter, I carried my mom's name. And so that's big in the South. I have a lot of friends, the same thing, female friends who have their mother's maiden names as their first names. I have a friend whose daughter's name is Paddock. That's her first name. That's her mother's maiden name. They call her Patty. I have a friend, Morgan. That was her mother's maiden name was Morgan. And so she goes by Morgan. So that's something big to do as well in the South, to honor the family's lineage. And even though the child will carry, but, in the South too, where I come from. So when women get married, it is common in the South for the woman to drop her middle name. So like if I got married, I would drop Elizabeth and I would take Watson as my middle name. And my last name would be my husband's name. So, and I know some cultures, they don't do that. In some cultures, they drop the maiden name and they keep the middle name. So my mother was born Alice Elizabeth Bryce. When she married my father, she became Alice Bryce Watson. But when she married my stepdad, she is now Alice Bryce Bradley. So the Bryce has always stayed there, which was her birth name, which is her father's name. So different cultures, to make a long story short, different cultures, I think, handle this in a very different way. And again, in the South where I come from, women are not expected to work. They're expected to go to college, go to university, get their education, but to be housewives and to be part of the garden club and the book club. And, that's just kind of the culture I come from. But in that same respect, they are still considered, they still carry that lineage of their family. So my mother is always, and my mother and her sisters too. So my mother has 3 sisters. They all have Bryce as their middle name now because that's their maiden name. They all dropped their actual maiden name or actual middle name, if that makes sense. So, and I know a lot of women who will keep their maiden name for work purposes, if that's how they're known. So I'm known now as Bryce Elizabeth Watson, not only on YouTube, but also in yoga. So if I were to get married, I would keep that for my work, but change my name privately to my husband's name. So it's all done differently with different cultures. And I understand, I think there are some cultures in the past and now to this day that do take that patriarchal lineage to an extreme. But I think a lot of cultures now very much balance it. If that makes sense. They're very balanced in their approach of I know now, it's very unheard of. I know back in the day, they used to leave all the states to the firstborn son, right? That never happens now from what I mean, everyone I know, every child, whether you're the firstborn child or the fifth-born child, when the parents pass away, the estates are divided equally among all of the children. So yeah, it's that's a very fascinating topic though that we've kind of talked. But yeah, I think just different cultures are different in the way that they marry the two families. Look at Indian culture. I mean, there's one of my favorite shows right now is a reality show called Family Karma. It's about a second generation or first generation born Indians. It's hysterical. Shanti, you would love it since you've lived in India, because you can relate to these people because they're Western, but their family's India. And they talk about when marriages come together, that in India, they take it very seriously because two families are literally merging as one. So it's not just the wife and the husband that are merging as one. It's both of the families are merging together as one. So yeah, it's interesting culturally. So we'll see what happens in the future. Like what will happen in the future, I don't know. We'll see with that. But anyway, all right. So we got verse 29. Man's heart is full of light. Far neath the earth's crust, in the halls of Amenti, mysteries I saw that are hidden from men. Oft have I journeyed the deep hidden passage, looked on the light that is life among men. There neareth the flower of life ever living, searched I the hearts of the secrets of men. Found that man, is but living in darkness. Light of the great fire is hidden within. So man is living in darkness, and the light that they're talking about that man is seeking is actually within. So
yeah, absolutely.
Isn't that the analogy? Maybe many people have read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and that's the analogy where the guy goes, the little shepherd boy goes on search for his great treasures, and he ends up on this wild adventures. He's from Spain, and he crosses over into the top of Africa, the north of Africa, and he goes through all these great adventures where he learns alchemy and all this stuff, and he finally gets to Egypt because he thinks that's where his personal treasure is going to be. And once he gets to Egypt, after he's gone through years of strife and turmoil to get there, he's told, like, no, your treasure's back at home. So he has to turn around and go back to Spain. And it's all a great metaphor, right? It's all a great metaphor for we go on these journeys looking for something. We're searching for, we're seekers.
Outside of ourselves.
And it's always
That's the
inside.
whole thing. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with having a beautiful journey and experiencing the world and what have you, but it's always good to know that the true gold, the true treasure, and that's when he comes back and he discovers it's right in his home, in his yard, under his tree. Which is
a metaphor for his body. Yeah. But you guys think about how amazing that is. So in this journey, if you read The Alchemist, in this journey, he becomes an alchemist. Like, he goes through these trials and tribulations. And so that's how amazing the universe is that even though you might be searching outside of yourself for your answers, by doing that, the universe provides you with lessons for you to learn. It's not outside of yourself, it's within yourself. So if the kid in The Alchemist had not gone through all that turmoil, he would have never learned the alchemy. He would never then realized it's not outside, it's inside. And so it's always, that seeker's journey is always seeking. It's like in Ashtanga yoga, we use the Tristana method of meditation when we practice, which is the dristi, the breath, and the posture. And a dristi is a focal point. So we don't close our eyes at all. Every posture has a focal point. So you're either looking at your nose, looking at your thumb, looking at your big toe. And what happens, if you guys remember from like eye exams when we were kids, when they teach you about how the eye works, the literal eye, is it sees something, but it sees it upside down and then reflips it to bring it back into your cognitive awareness. So how amazing is that a metaphor for what's being used with the dristi, with the focal point? Is actually bringing it back inside of you. Everything then comes back to you. And so I would highly suggest reading The Alchemist if you guys haven't, because it is a huge, Paulo Coelho's books are awesome anyway. I know people have their thoughts and their feelings on Paulo Coelho, but I've always enjoyed his books. I've always enjoyed.
What thoughts and feelings? Don't tell me.
People think he's dirty. They think he's part of the cabal. They think he's he's talking about. I love Paulo Coelho. All of his books have been amazing to me. Very transformative. I was reading Paulo Coelho long before I ever even started practicing yoga. So it was like my introduction to these ideas of going inside yourself. So in Thoth's modern commentary, it said, the halls of Amenti lie deep beneath the earth's crust. I traveled there many times and looked upon the flower of life that gives substance and sustains life. And we talked about that the first episode, the flower of life possibly being one of the technologies from Atlantis, like a med bed that's able to regenerate life. which in my opinion, I don't think anybody should be super focused on the med beds right now, because from what I understand is that technology is not going to work unless you are able to work the technology, meaning you have worked on yourself.
But the thing is, when you learn how to work your inner technology, you don't need outer technology. So seriously, guys, whoever's talking to you stories about the med beds, no.
And what I've been told too with this technology is that, like, literally people are waiting around to get in it to lose weight. If you get into a med bed thinking you're going to lose 100 pounds, you got another thing coming. That's not how this works. It's not going to do anything.
You've got to understand that spiritual intelligence outweighs everything. And as long as you're giving your power away to something, you are not going to achieve what you set out to achieve. It might help you to a point, but it's not going to. You're just going to be crashing down.
It's just like anything, like when we talk about cryotherapy, like getting into a cold refrigerator. It's just a tool. But if you're not doing the work, it's not going to work. And that's what I like about the upcoming timeline, is that there's no cheating anymore. It's going to force people to actually, like, not be complacent. They're going to have to, like, do their own work in order to make the magic happen for themselves. And so
I think in order to raise our frequency, in order to experience the new dimension, timeline, whatever, that's now that we have to do the work. It's now. It's when we get there, it's easy, because then we've done it. So it's now.
Hence why we're doing a 60-day shadow work challenge, guys.
Oh yeah.
There's your med bed. There's your med bed. A 60-day shadow work challenge. That's your med bed. So
exactly.
And so I just wanted to point that out, guys, that like that the Atlanteans were far more advanced than we are. That's our ancestors, and they understood this stuff. And I do think it's the cabal that stripped this information from us, created religions. So we're constantly seeking something outside of ourselves for our own validation, all that kind of stuff. But he goes on to say, there I searched and contemplated the hearts of men. I found that man does not recognize his own great fire that is hidden within. There you go. So if you're just relying on a med bed to fix you, you don't actually recognize your great fire hidden within. You don't recognize it. And that's all the universe wants you to do. All the universe wants you to do is to realize that you are that. That's one of Alan Watts' books, right? I am that. I am that. It's not, no one has to like bless you with it. No one has to bestow it upon you. Just by merely being alive, you are that. Yeah? She shot contribute to her wisdom. Again, Thoth, my beloved, is speaking of the hearts of man. Although he has lived many lifetimes and traveled the halls of Amenta each time, he still found that man does not recognize the capacity of light that is already within him. We just haven't, and maybe this is the time where humanity shifts now. We start to figure it out again. But anyway, I think I know we're coming in about an hour. Do you guys? So actually, that is the perfect cutoff point, because next week we're going into the 7 lords of frequency, which is the chakras.
Nice.
Awesome. Okay. I just wanted to add with the light within our hearts, the heart of man. I just keep seeing this picture, of Jesus with this the heart on fire, like the flame in the heart. That's fire, and then above him is the dove that's flying out. And that to me is such an awesome picture to resemble that spirit within us. When our heart is free like the dove, pure, free, and the fire, the flame burns within our hearts again. And when Thoth speaks about the flame, he's not talking about our solar plexus fire flame. It's like that heart flame. It's like the soul. So it's always that picture with like above, and below. So it's very fascinating that picture just came out very hard for me when you were reading it. It was just that, that's what it's about, that compassion, that air flowing through our hearts open and wide and free, like a dove.
One day we should do a show on Kundalini, because I do have a story about that as well. And I was talking to Emmy offline one day because she had some questions about something, and I don't share this story that much. But you saying that, Mornay, it's something that I'm not struck with. It's something that's happened to me in my practice a couple of times, and we'll have to go. And I have a whole book on it right here that I'm going to cover eventually on my channel, which is the Christ consciousness, right? Kundalini, and what that fire sensation. We'll have to maybe one day do a show on that and talk about that, because that is exactly what you're describing. Is exactly what I have experienced a couple of times on my yoga mat, that sensation. And it took me a long time for people to explain to me what was happening.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to,
I experienced that a lot with my meditations. It's when I call it the higher heart. It's where it's like, it's the pink in the green, like our chakras, sankits. We do the green and pink with our sankits.
Yeah.
So it's when your crown chakra opens up and you allow God's divine, just grace and everything to flow in, and then it opens up this little higher love feeling. So I can feel it in the energy. It's the same picture. It's the same thing that I've heard now with Toph's story. It's that
maybe
we
that
are
might be a
divine.
good.
We created our divinity. We created our
and maybe
if we connect with that, it's amazing.
Maybe before we get into the reading next week, we can talk about that more, because I know what you're saying, and it's a very specific sensation. And that will get us into the 7th, because it lines up with all the chakras too. And I don't typically like talking about it, because I don't want people to cling to certain stories, because it's such a very specific thing. But if you guys want to, because that, Mornay, you're like, what you described is like identical to the few times over the years that I've experienced this sensation that's knocked me off my mat. And I didn't know for a long time. It wasn't until I talked to a more senior teacher that I knew it was actually going on, because many people did not know what was happening. So we can maybe start off next week talking a little bit about that before we get into the chakra system through Thoth, and what Kundalini is, and what that fire of spirit actually is, and that Christ consciousness and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we can do that. Absolutely.
Cool.
Okay, guys. Interesting little show with my doves in and out as well. I want to say thank you so much for joining us again for a beautiful Monday with our lovely Bryce, talking again about how not to be an asshole. I love it. Just got to follow some little pointers, and we all got it. We're all happy. We're all not assholes. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much. Brycey, anything else you want to say before we end off?
Keep going, you guys. I'm so proud of everybody who has done the 60-day challenge, and people who are constantly doing their own shadow work. It's hard, but it's supposed to be hard, because that's the friction. That's where we realize we're up against our own bondage, and that's what breaks the bondage. So just keep going, guys. You guys are amazing. You're awesome. Thank you so much for being here and walking us. We're all just walking each other home. So thank you so much for being on this journey with us as well, and motivating and inspiring us too.
Indeed. And we look forward to seeing you for the next 2 months, those of you on the challenge, and it's going to be lots of fun. Cool. God bless you all. Take good care of yourselves. Mwah. Like, share, subscribe, please. Just get the word out there. Take care of yourselves, everybody. And we'll see you on Wednesday on Solutions with Aquarius Rising Africa. We are talking the Sophia Code. So join us for that. Very interesting. Okay. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.